Hi, this is 365801 and this is another 2020 Year in BL review video. In this series I look at my BL manga collection, my reading and consumption for the year 2020. Now this time last year I made a video looking at my buying versus reading habits for 2019 and I focused solely on the 2019 releases that I had purchased, and of those how many I had read, and I then went on to compare overall my total for my 2019 purchases and how many of those as a whole I had read. Now the results were quite eye-opening and it did lead me to create a new goal for the year 2020, and that was to read more of what I was buying and purchasing and bringing into the collection, and also to read more of my collection overall and to review and to enjoy my collection rather than focusing on collecting. It really did highlight the fact that I viewed the collection and collecting as a slightly separate hobby to the reading and enjoyment of the collection, and in a sense they are two separate things. So collecting is one hobby and my manga and manga reading is actually another hobby. One of the viewers of this video last year pointed out in the comments that I should not be TSUNDOKU and instead actually read my collection. As I had mentioned, it was a new goal for 2020. TSUNDOKU is a brilliant, fabulous Japanese word that kind of implies that you are collecting lots of piles of books but you never actually get round to reading them. So your TBR is almost unmanageable, and I am 100% aware that that is where I am at in terms of the collection. So for this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the months, month by month, and look at the number of print titles that I purchased, and then of those, how many I read at some point in time during 2020. I didn't have to read it during the month I purchased it, I just had to read it during 2020, as in I brought it into the collection during 2020. And did I read it in 2020? So I'm going to go through what I bought and what I read per month. Now this helps me to see if there was a specific month where I bought certain titles that I was more interested in reading, or if there was some months that I'd read a lot of them and in some months that I didn't read any, which unfortunately is the case. Now, it might be that there were certain forces at play, i.e. I was very busy that month, I was working a lot, or mental health issues, or whatever. As we all know, 2020 was a dumpster fire, so it's interesting to look back over month by month which months I read a lot of the things that I actually purchased, or I was reading other things perhaps that might come into play as well. I am really interested in statistics, so I'm going to give a bit of a rundown at the end of the video, looking specifically at my overall numbers and the percentages of those that I read. Now for January, there's a lovely selection, it's a good variety, all the different publishers, and I was able to pick up 7 print volumes. And some of them are ones that I'd been looking forward to getting for a while, and those were the ones that I ended up reading. I only read 2 of the 7, which isn't a great percentage, but the ones that I read I really enjoyed and I had looked forward to, especially 3 Wolves Mountain. It's one I'd been looking to get a good copy of for a good price for a long time, and I finally managed to get it, and I was really happy. It's a great story. Now for February, I was able to pick up a really great set of Earthian, all 4 volumes, and a couple of other really good titles, the due titles that were out of print, and Kazuna that added to the collection. However, I don't have the whole of Kazuna, and that's maybe an excuse for me not reading it, but there is really no excuse for not reading any of the other titles, except I had to look back and think, what was I doing over February? And I was very busy, but I've had them since February and I haven't read them. So this is definitely on me. I bought these and I haven't read them, and there's no excuse for that. I was able to pick up 8 print volumes, and once again I've got a really great selection of different publishers, but I only read 3 of these throughout the year, and I have to say I read these 3 fairly early on. I think I read them in March and April time, so I picked up That Blue Sky Feeling and I read it straight away. It was the final volume in the series, and so it was really easy for me to just be able to read this 3-volume series and enjoy it. The other 2 are one-shots, and so they're quite easy to pick up as well. But that's only 3 out of 8, and so it's not a great percentage. There are certainly some on that list that I should have read and I still want to read. Now for April, you can see that I got 6 print volumes, and they're a really great selection as well. I read technically more than the 3 that you see on the screen. I was able to pick up Without Reservations, which is a male-male romance novel, and I did read through that, and I'm very happy about it, so I didn't put that up, but I did read it. Hitorajime My Hero Volume 5, and I Give to You, and 7 Days. There are a couple other ones on there. Embracing Love completed the set, so I was happy to finally complete the set, and Eternal Love is a yaoi novel that I plan to read in 2021. But 4 out of 6 is a bit better than the previous months, that's for sure. Now, May was a pretty fantastic month in terms of getting print volumes, and I got 18 print volumes altogether. And within those 18, there was a really great selection of different publishers and different titles, some new and some out of print. Of those 18, I have read 8 in 2020, which is not great. I mean, there's still 10 sitting there unread, so that's not a great percentage, certainly not 50%, and it's not as good as the month before. This is a real reflection though. If you look on the screen, I have all of these Sublime titles that I picked up read. And then I have the Vassalord set, because I really wanted to read Vassalord this year. I picked it up and read it. I'm very happy about that. But there's an awful lot of June manga titles that I have not read. And I think that's where I'm looking to see there's a pattern emerging, that there are certain publishers I'm reading and some that I'm not. Now for the month of June, June is my proud month. This is really funny. I know it's Pride Month, but June is the month where I am super proud of myself, because I purchased 6 volumes of print and I read 6 volumes. Everything I have read in this month. And it's kind of odd because Voice or Noise is volume 3, and so I was just like, oh, I'm not going to read this, I'll just flick through it. And yet I still ended up reading all of it and going, wow, this is a really crazy story, because I've never actually sat down and read Voice or Noise. I have volumes 1 and 2, but I've now read volume 3. I read the other ones, and that's probably because many of them, other than Voice or Noise, are fairly new titles, and I'm seeing a pattern emerging that the new Tokyopop, the Sublime titles, the Seven Seas titles, also Hitojime My Hero, Kodansha, these are all new titles, and I read them all, so maybe that is also something to note. On to July, and we can see once again a nice selection of different publishers, and I was able to pick up 12 print volumes, but when you look at how many of these volumes I read, I only read 4 of them, 3 of them being Sublime titles and 1 being an Old Blue title, Tokyopop's defunct BL imprint. Now that once again shows me that the newer titles are the ones that I'm happily reading straight away, and I'm very happy to have read them. They were really enjoyable, but the older June titles, 801 titles, I am not reading. I don't know if that's maybe something to do with the interest or the shiny newness of them, but yeah, 4 out of 12 is not a great percentage. Now, August is a nice little number again, so I'm very happy with the smallness of this. Only 7 print volumes purchased, and once again, it's a nice little selection of different publishers and different imprints. Very happy about the fact that I'm being varied in my selections. However, when it comes to the ones that I've actually read during 2020, there's only 2. Now, I Hear the Sunspot, this is Limit Volume 1, and I had already purchased this. This was a second volume that's in better quality, better condition, but I still sat down and read it anyway, even though it's just in the middle of the series, because it's a shiny new title, it's a new volume, so I sat down and read it. The other one that I read is No One Loves Me, and this is a Yamada Yugi title. And I was just overjoyed to have this in my collection and really wanting to just sit down and enjoy reading it. And I really did. I did it for the 25 Days of Manga. I'll put a link to the review. And it's such a great title. So happy to have it in my collection. The other ones though, once again, I have not read these out of print or slightly older titles. I have a really great selection of some fantastic titles, 2 kind of sets there, 3 actually, and a few others that are part of series, only a couple of one-shots. It's a really great little selection of 13 print titles. Very, very nice to have them. I'm happy to have them in the collection. But when it comes to reading them, only 2? That's shocking. For 13 to 2 is a really bad percentage. It's not great. And the What Did You Eat Yesterday Volume 1, it was kind of like a reread, so it feels really bad. Chocolate Surprise, I once again read for the 25 Days of Manga. I have to say thanks to them for hosting that, because I got a lot of my 2020 purchases read during those 25 days. Otherwise, they would not have been, and it would have been even worse. So I'm a little bit ashamed. 2 out of 13 is not good. Now into October, and whoa, it just jumps out at you. There's so many titles there compared to my usual amount for a month, and that is quite a large amount, 37 print volumes. But that is because there's a couple of big series there, Godchild and Bloody Mary, that I am also so interested in, but it did add to the collection and they are BL adjacent, so I put them in there. There are a lot of other varied titles, and I have to say, I only read 11, and that's not really good. I enjoyed reading them, and some of them are fairly new-ish, Sublime titles. The other ones that I read, Secrecy of the Shivering Night, Honey Smile, they're practically brand new, i.e. they're in such good quality, they look like they've never been read. And of course, can an otaku like me be an idol? That was a fairly new one to me. I think it was kind of released in 2020 and also 2019, depending on where you are in the world. So yeah, only 11 out of 37, but some of them, as I've said, are parts of series that I haven't got the whole of, and so I've kind of held off. But yeah, I'm not impressed. But 11 is still much, much better than some of the other months. But then if you're going to buy 37, then the percentage goes up. But yeah, it's not the best, I have to say. I'm not impressed with the number that I bought and yet the number that I read. I do have to say though that there is one particular title that is not in this list, and that is Little Butterfly. And that's a special case because I kind of read it and I kind of didn't. So I could add that, but I'm not going to for specific reasons. Maybe that'll come up in a separate video in the future, but we'll see. Now into November we go, and once again I have quite a large stack, and that is of course because I bought the whole of Gravitation as single volumes, and so it does add quite a big chunk to the collection when you have the single volumes sitting there. It does look very impressive. But on the other side there is a small little number and quite a nice little group of titles. Some of them are adding to collections or series, and some of them I don't have the whole series with me, and therefore I don't really want to read them. And that's a good excuse, but it's not really a great excuse when only 4 out of 23 have been read. That is shocking. And almost all of them in either November and December. So yeah, I mean, it's good that I read them, but I'm still not very impressed with myself when it comes to the ones I'm not reading. Only 4 out of 23. I know Gravitation makes it look bad, but I need to sit down and read Gravitation. If I'm gonna buy it, I need to read it. So only 4. I do love the 4 that I read, but 2 of them are fairly new, and the other 2 are rare that I was very excited to be able to get and finally read. So yeah, the excitement level versus whether or not I read it is there. That's an issue as well. Now on to the final month of 2020, December, when I was able to pick up a nice stack. A couple of those were, of course, gifted to me, but what a lovely number, 21, and it's really exciting. A couple of them are brand new as well, so you would think I would have read them, especially the new June manga titles that I was able to pick up and get, but did I read them? No, I only read 2 of the ones that are sitting there, and one is the male romance continuation of Without Reservations, with caution. It's a really great series. I'm looking forward to getting the 3rd one in it, hopefully sometime in 2021. And of course our dining table, which I did not even buy, it was a gift. I'm really quite disappointed that out of all of the ones that are there, I haven't read them. I do already know Until the Full Moon. I read the Kodansha version. So yeah, there's a lot that I've purchased that are part of series that I want to read the whole series, or I'm still collecting them, so I'll get round to it, or I'm missing volumes, so I don't want to read these ones until I get the rest of the volume, and that seems to be an issue with a lot of these titles. 2 out of 21 though is really poor. It's a really bad number as well. So yeah, there's been quite a few months where I have not done very well with the percentages. So overall, I was able to pick up 165 print volumes that I was able to add to the collection, and what I've got on the screen in front of you now is those that I read, and that's 48 volumes. So I read 48 out of 165. Now I love looking at statistics, so of course I wanted to find out what the percentage was, and that is only 29%. So it's not even 30%, not even a third. Now 165 was print, and I was, if you've looked at my previous video, able to pick up 179 volumes overall, I think. So not that many digital compared to my print. My print is what I am buying more of, but only 29% read. And it's interesting to look at what I have read and how many of them are new or newer titles, the ones that I chose to read versus the ones that I actually added to the collection. There's a lot of Sublime there, you can see. So yeah, there's a lot of titles that are Sublime are picking up that I'm like, ooh, interesting, good, and I want to read. And I definitely think that that's kind of coming through just from the visual. A lot of the other titles I read, you can see on the screen, I read due to a readathon. So for example, when there's a readathon with a particular theme or purpose, and I will make sure that I'm trying to read for my collection and therefore adding to this read pile. So without the readathons, I perhaps would not have this many, and even have a small number. Now, looking at each month by month, it's quite interesting as well. So I looked at percentages for each month. Obviously, there is a range, and the lowest is February, with 7 purchased and 0 read, so it's a 0%. Whereas June, 6 purchased, 6 read, 100%. And I've got everything in between. So May, 44% is the next one. It's not a great, or 66 April, that's not bad. We've got some as low as 10%, December. And I think the last 3 months, October, November and December, where I purchased quite a large number, but didn't actually read that many compared to that number, they don't look so great. So the percentages are a huge range, but yeah, from 0 to 100. Not consistent in terms of the reading, what I'm bringing in per month. It has been interesting to look at my reading month by month and what I'm purchasing, and I'm wondering if anyone else does this with their reading journals or on Storygraph or Goodreads, if they're keeping a track on what they're hauling versus what they're actually reading, and if they check the numbers on this. So if you do, or if you have a particular way of doing this, can you let me know in the comments below? I really want to find out if there's a good way of tracking. If you've got a reading journal video, can you link it in the description, and that way I'll know, okay, I'll check that out and see how they're doing it, because I really want to be able to track this a lot better than what I have been doing. So yeah, this is an interesting point. Of the ones I've read, what are they? And as you can see, there's quite a few that are Sublime titles, or that are fairly new titles. New as in 2020 purchases, 2020 releases, but also maybe 2019, 2018, fairly new. And some of the ones that are not are ones that I read specifically for readathons. So if I hadn't read them for the readathon, they wouldn't be on this list either. So the purpose of the reading, thank you to all the readathons that were held. Without you, I wouldn't even have this 48 or 30%, 29% I should say. So yeah, it's been interesting to look specifically at what I'm reading from what I'm bringing in. I think I'm going to do another video specifically looking at my 2020 titles, so that I can compare and contrast with my overall collection. So that might be the next video. If you are interested in that next video, then you might want to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you can get notified when that video is up. If you like this video, if you find it interesting, please give a thumbs up. I make lots of videos on boys love, manga, male romance, and all that good stuff. So if you would like, stick around and I'll have another video up very soon. Remember, every day is a BL day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!